रस्सी जल गई लेकिन ऐंठन नहीं। ये कहावत भारत में काफी प्रसिद्ध है और ये कहावत पाकिस्तान पर सटीक बैठती है, क्योंकि पिछले 70 साल में 4 युद्ध लड़ा, चारों में हार गई, फिर भी दुश्मनी जारी है। पाकिस्तान दिवालिया होने की कगार पर खड़ा है और भारत दुनिया को दिशा दे रहा है। इस रिजल्ट पर आप क्या कहेंगे? लेकिन मूर्ख पाकिस्तान है कि मानता ही नहीं। अब एक बार फिर भारत सरकार ने पाकिस्तान और शहबाज को सबक सिखाया है। जी हां, खबरों की माने तो भारत ने पाकिस्तान की शहबाज सरकार के खिलाफ बड़ी डिजिटल स्ट्राइक की है। भारत में पाकिस्तान सरकार का ट्विटर अकाउंट बैन कर दिया गया है। कहा जा रहा है कि हाल ही में एफआई पर 5 साल के बैन का पाकिस्तान सरकार ने ट्वीट कर विरोध जताया था। माना जा रहा है कि इसी वजह से भारत ने पाकिस्तान सरकार के खिलाफ एक्शन लिया है। सोशल मीडिया पर पाकिस्तान के कनाडाई दूतावास के एक ट्वीट का स्क्रीनशॉट, जो पॉपुलर फ्रंट ऑफ इंडिया के एक ट्वीट का जवाब था, खूब वायरल हुआ था। जानकारी देते चले कि ये पहली बार नहीं है कि जब पाकिस्तान पर भारत ने डिजिटल स्ट्राइक की हो। इससे पहले भी देश विरोधी कंटेंट वाले 55 यूट्यूब चैनल्स और 2 वेबसाइट्स को मोदी सरकार ने बैन कर दिया था। भारत पाकिस्तान पर इस तरह की कार्रवाई जनवरी 2022 और दिसंबर 2021 में भी कर चुका है। अभी हाल ही में जयशंकर ने अमेरिका को लताड़ा था और कहा था, हम मूर्ख नहीं हैं कि आप मदद करें और हम ना जाएं, और अगर आपको यही करना है तो हमको कुछ और सोचना होगा। इस बात पर अमेरिकी विदेश मंत्री ने सफाई दी थी और कहा था कि आप इस तरह ना समझें, पाकिस्तान पुराना मित्र है और इसीलिए हमने मदद की है, लेकिन आगे से आपकी शिकायत पर गौर करेंगे। अब ये सरकार ने पाकिस्तान को जवाब दिया है। देखना होगा कि इस एक्शन पर शहबाज शरीफ का क्या रिएक्शन सामने आता है। फिलहाल आप भारत सरकार के इस एक्शन पर क्या कुछ कहना चाहते हैं? कमेंट कर हमें जरूर बताएं।
Asian News International.
Minister Jaishankar and Secretary Blinken, thank you for doing this. Minister Jaishankar, you've had a very busy week at UNGA, meeting all your counterparts. Now, did they express their worries about Ukraine, which you mentioned in your remarks, of course, but also Taiwan? And did you discuss the impact of these developments on the global economy with Secretary Blinken? How are the two countries going to work together to address these concerns? And my second question to Secretary Blinken is, you talked about F-16 and the obligation that the US has, but can you further clarify what counter-terror threats does Pakistan face, and why is there a need for these fighter jets? Also, there's a discussion with your Pakistani counterpart to improve ties with India and to make the region more stable. What was their response? You did give them an advice to maintain peace. What was the advice that you gave them?
I had, of course, a lot of meetings in the UN in that week. I met, I guess, roughly about half the delegations who were there. And a common concern among them was the anxiety about global economic volatility and anxiety about sharply increased energy prices, of food inflation and food availability, of fertilizers which will impact food next year, of disrupted trade, of shipping, of insurance, of airline movements, of travel. So this was honestly not an optimistic global mood which you got from your colleagues. And I think in particular what the impact, the consequences of the Ukraine conflict has been on many of these issues I spoke about, and also I think the prospect of instability or in the Indo-Pacific, because today Asia and Indo-Pacific is so central to global trade, and in particularly in some very critical areas. So these were very, very widely prevalent concerns. We had a good discussion about it yesterday evening. And we do think today, I mean, I speak for India, but I also speak to some degree for the relationship having an impact on the world. We think the right thing today is to find ways of stabilizing the global economy, of softening prices, of making sure that global trade is more predictable, that the sources of anxieties and tensions are less. Because at the end of the day, that's really, Prime Minister Modi, of course, said this is not an era of war, but this is an era of where we seek development, where we seek prosperity, where we seek progress. And I think India nationally and India through its key partners would like to do more to strengthen those trends.
On the question of the F-16s again, and it's important to be very clear, this is, as I said, about sustaining an existing program, not adding a new one, and we have a responsibility to do that wherever we're engaged in the provision of defense equipment like F-16s. And second, as to what these are for, there are clear terrorism threats that continue to emanate from Pakistan itself, as well as from neighboring countries, and whether it is TTP that may be targeting Pakistan, whether it's ISIS Khorasan, whether it's Al-Qaeda. I think the threats are clear, well known, and we all have an interest in making sure that we have the means to deal with them, and that's what this is about. More broadly, we always encourage our friends to resolve their differences through diplomacy, through dialogue. That hasn't changed. It won't change. It would not be appropriate for me to characterize Pakistan's response just as I wouldn't characterize our friend's response in a similar conversation.
Today, if you look at the India-US relationship, it's not a narrow relationship only devoted to each other's gains. I think our relationship today impacts the rest of the world, definitely does the Indo-Pacific. There are a lot of countries who look to us individually or bilaterally for some part of the betterment which they hope for, and the solutions which the world is searching for in many respects. So that's the sort of broad sense which I want to give you. A bilateral, a very solid, positive, productive bilateral conversation, but framed in the context of larger global challenges where there's a high degree of convergence on how we look at those challenges. We may articulate it a little bit differently. It's natural, our positions will not be identical, our priorities may sometimes be a little bit different. But again, the good part of the relationship is today that we understand that we have to make space for each other, and that we can work with each other even if we do not entirely agree on every aspect of every issue. So it was I would say, a very comfortable visit in that sense. I think we had some very good conversations.